What is the name of your book?
The name of it right now is Another Side of That War.
Okay.
I'm changing it to Combat Search and Rescue, and trying to get a little bit more descriptive name on it.
You tell me your name and spell your name for me and tell me your rank.
Donald W. Dunaway.
Okay.
Donald is common spelling. Dunaway is D-U-N-A-W-A-Y.
Okay. And you're looking right here. There we go. Beautiful. And what was your rank?
I retired as a captain. Went to Southeast Asia in 1968. Got out at the end of 1969. Retired at the end of 1969. And the 12 months I spent in the 602nd working with volunteers in a wholly volunteer unit was the epitome of military service. It doesn't get any better than that. And
can you tell me a little bit about that?
I was in the 602nd, what we call the Fighter Squadron Commando, which got changed to Special Operations Squadron when we moved from UDORN to NKP. We were the only unit in Southeast Asia with the primary job of supporting the Jolly Green helicopters in their rescue work. We were A1s. We flew escort for them to get them to the scene of the rescue. We suppressed any opposition to the rescue, and we flew daisy chain around them while they were making the rescue. And the most gratifying work I ever did in 20 years of Air Force time. The Jolly Greens were our sister unit, you might say, there at NKP. There were other Jolly Green outfits throughout Southeast Asia, and no matter where they came from, you knew that the rescue helicopters were going to be manned by, again, volunteers. They were dedicated. They were dedicated. That's all you can call them. Their motto was that others may live, and it's kind of like the motto of "Leave no man behind." Very, very gratifying work. It's there is none better. We had some bad rescues. We had mostly they were good ones. In January of 69, I'm sorry, I had been over there about 6 months, and we had one of our assistant ops officer was shot down on another rescue and spent the night in the treetops, and we got we planned on working his rescue at the same time they finished up the rescue that he was shot down on. But we got down there on time to be in place and ready to go at the very first light. But our Sandy 2, our ops officer, was he was he spent the night in the tree, and we got to him the next morning after the sun had burnt the clouds off his location, and we got started on his rickshaw about 9 or 9:30, and we made, I don't know, multiple passes and taking hits on every pass. My wingman was either shot down or ran himself out of fuel, and when that happened, I had to look in my cockpit to make sure I had what I had left to work with, and I had about 50 pounds of fuel, so I turned it over to the escort Sandys that were taking care of, that were escorting the Jollies. They finished up the rescue, or they finished taking care of what we couldn't while we were there, and when they got the rescue helicopter in there to pick up Sandy 2, the helicopter picked up the survivor that had been in the woods, the treetop all night, and as they were leaving, they were hit by 37 millimeter fire that took the leg off of PJ, and they had to crash land that helicopter and get the backup chopper in right behind his crash, and he got everybody out of the chopper that had been shot down. The chopper that was shot down had a full crew, of course, and plus the survivor from the rescue that he just completed, and the pilot of the helicopter put it down in a control crash that they were not completely away from all the big guns, but far enough that they could get in there and scoop everybody up and get out again. And in the meantime, I was on my way back to NKP with hardly any fuel, 50 pounds. And when I got back to NKP where I could see the runway and whatnot, I told them I had a fuel emergency. I didn't know how much I had because the thing saved 50 gallons all the way home, or 50 pounds all the way home. And you have to wonder if they have any accuracy at all at that level. But the tower cleared me to land downwind, and I made a successful landing and turned around and went back to the disarm crew who were at the correct rollout into the runway that they should have been on, and they told me then, the disarm crew, or the armament crew, told me that I had 9 extra holes in my airplane from small arms resistance, I guess we call it. But the guy that shot down the rescue helicopter was certainly a bigger gun than I had been fighting, and I got into the field, got my armament all cleaned up, got back to the parking area, and just as I reached for the mixture control to shut the engine down, it quit. So that's as close as I have ever come to having to bail out. We didn't have any. Well, but it turns out that when I got home, that the rescue had been completed while I was on the way home, and they were bringing the survivor to NKP, so our assistant ops officer, Pete Morris, was shot down on the 17th of January, and then he was shot down again the next day on the 18th. And we like to think that that's a bad career track to follow, is getting shot down and picked up. So they had a rule in effect at the time that if you get shot down twice in combat, you don't have to fly any more combat, which is great. What else can I tell you?
May I ask you a question?
You may.
You were talking about the pride of working in that specific area. If you were to give advice to some young man or woman today that wanted to go into the military or wanted to do something like you did, what would you tell them?
I would say that there is nothing more gratifying than combat search and rescue. There are more pleasant pursuits to follow, but none more gratifying. You're in a unit with all volunteers, and that in itself is a plus you can't exceed. And with that mission, that prospect, there is no higher calling than combat search and rescue. And the way the PJs put it, and the PJs are something else. They say that others may live.
Can you tell me what a PJ is?
A pararescue jumper. He is the undeniable king of the rescue force, because he has dedicated his life to that others may live.
Now, may I ask you, now I want to know what it was like to fly a Sky Raider. Did you fly other planes?
I have flown many other planes. F-101, F-102, ADC fighters, T-33 trainers, and the A-1 Sky Raider, although it was an archaic airframe, it was devised and instituted just at the end of World War II and just before the Korean War, and it has built its reputation through the years after that. And it will not be exceeded as being a fighter, a war machine, a killing machine. It weighed 18,000 pounds without fuel or armament, and weighed 36,000 pounds with fuel and its load of destruction. And it was an honest airplane. It would do what you ask of it, and it was a splendid machine to fly. It was a great airframe. Now, when we got them when the Navy was through with them, and they had phased them out of carrier duty, and we got several of them I guess all the Navy had, I don't know, but we certainly did enjoy what they would do. They were not very fast, but they sure would slow. And that's what it took for the mission we put it to, which was combat search and rescue, suppression of resistance, or support of combats in contact with the enemy, and they excelled at that.
I heard that there was a party where they would throw a big party. If you could tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, at the NKP Officers Club, behind the main bar, sitting on top of the back bar, was a little doll that was patterned after the Jolly Green of vegetable garden fame, and he was holding a little chalkboard, looked like an old-fashioned school slate, and they kept they kept the number of rescues that the local Jolly Green unit had recovered. One of the 40th Air Rescue Squadrons. And when they had the survivor there, if he was in good enough shape, the air crews, Jolly Green and fixed wing, that had participated in his rescue, all of them, everybody was thrown over the bar bodily, and the survivor got to update the number to include himself. And youthful exuberance being what it is, sometimes one trip across the bar would not be sufficient. So there would be other low altitude passes over the bar. And the club officer, you have to imagine this or visualize it, he was running around there grabbing perishables, trying to save them from the invading Huns. And at the end of his tour, I'm sure he knew that he too had served in a combat zone, because he suffered like the rest of us did.
That is fantastic. Is there anything else that you would like to talk about? What was it? Was your son born while you were serving?
No, all of my children were born and on site before I went overseas. The oldest boy was about 8. The youngest daughter, was about 5 or 6, and I still catch hell for volunteering to go, but I wouldn't do it any other way.
How about your wife? Did she give you a hard time?
Oh yes, still. And I've come to live with it.
Like any good husband, you just take the beating and keep moving.
Yeah.
Now, how long have you been married to your wife?
Last July was 65 years. Working on 66 now.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, I thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about your experience in that Sky Raider?
I think I've covered it all.
You are a great man. I really appreciate it, Doc.
Hello, Sandy 2, Sandy 1. Go ahead. Are you with the Jollies this time? That's firm.
King 27, Golly Green 30, Victor on the run-in.
Say again, Alpha. Understand you. Copy 82 Bravo. Charlie, hold your position. Hold your position. Hello, 82 Bravo. Hello, 82 Bravo. Sandy 1, go ahead. Speak slower. 82 Bravo, speak slower. Sandy 1. Okay, where am I from you now? Where am I from you now? Say again, say again.
Okay, I want you to go back with 3 and 4. Go back with 3 and 4. We'll call you to execute as soon as we find Bravo. Okay, we're going back with 3 and 4. Alamo 3, King 27.
82 Bravo, Sandy 1. How do you read now? You have insight? Have me in sight? Okay, I'm going to fly down the river,